Hi there, this is Contraption and this is the fourth episode of Top Players Quarantine. Today I have a special guest coming from Russia. I find that my guest has a unique personality. I find him curious, very oriented towards that place where science meets arts and beautiful and abstract intentions are formed. He is also a long contributor of touch designer community in many forms than just the latest amazing tutorials on GLSL, ray marching techniques, vertex shaders, and so on. I give you Stas Sumarokov. Welcome. Hi, Stas.
Hi.
Nice to see you again because I have to do this intro again because the recording broke. So I've asked you if you were a dancer because I saw that beautiful space in the back of you. Would you care to share some of your experience with dancing?
Yeah, I dance contemporary-based improvisation, and that's initially was my pathway to touch designer because I thought that I could do something with dance and video art. Because in dance improvisation, you always think about limitations. The limitation: could you dance without music? Could you dance with I don't know, tied arms or something like that? And then you eventually think, should I even use my body to dance? Maybe I could, I don't know, dance with particles or dance with something else.
Yes,
that could come from video art.
And did you use the video part as a limitation or a boundary for your movement?
It happens naturally because if you come up with some effect or some stylistic, I'm usually dancing when a video behind me, projected behind me, and it's turned out that I need to move differently depending on effect. Because if I dance as my usual style, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So every time you come up with a new effect, new idea, you need to adapt your dance to this.
And how long did you do this? I mean, did you have public shows or
no.
project?
No, it's just a personal investigation. I live in a small town and there is not so much things happening. So yeah, sometimes I do some shows, but not so much.
Yeah, we share that experience because I used to live in a very small town, not that Bucharest itself it's too big, but I mean, we did this stage shows, performances, theater on a theater stage, and it was weird.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you've seen this kind of work or contemporary dance mixed with multimedia.
Yeah, I've seen. I'm like collecting the links for it, and
yeah.
So some of them I would divide it in two categories. Sometimes it's just looks what we can do. It's just some effect that's absolutely not related to the dance or whatever. But sometimes the video is somehow gives more meaning or gives more ideas or enchants the dance. But it's same even with just a normal video dance. When sometimes there is a stable camera, a dance, and dance becomes like a super flat. But sometimes the cameraman do an interesting job.
Yes,
dance
because
become even more interesting.
Image is a very loud actor to put on the stage.
Yeah.
Video, I mean, it catches people's eyes, all the attention. You have to manage the quantities of the video and really try to keep it as to enhance the performance, right?
Yeah, right.
So how important are hobbies and extracurricular activities to you?
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah, I mean, aside your work process, do they keep you fresh? Do they keep you oriented?
I think for me, the joy of life mostly comes from curiosity and doing stuff and investigating stuff and experimenting. And there, the hobby fits the best, because in work, first couple weeks or months, there's a curious, and then you just do it automatically. It's just work. You know how to do it. And in dance or in touch or everywhere, you always could find some task that you absolutely have no idea how to do, and you need to investigate, learn from it.
And do you have a recipe that works, between hobbies and work, so that they both stimulate each other? Because I find that when I have a musical hobby, so I play an instrument and I go and I play, and I find that I get lost in that, and my day hasn't a lot of time for my work practice, or vice versa.
I don't know. Probably I have a very organized personality, so for me it's not a problem. I'm just, okay, now I need to work. Now I don't have any good work, so
yeah,
let's do stuff.
Yeah, this is easy for us in theory, but if you can do that, that's simple, that's great. And what are your latest discoveries in your hobby research or curiosity journeys? What are you working now for now?
Let me think. I think right now I'm not working with something particular, because recently I ended this rematching tutorial series, and now I don't know what to do next. So I'm just, usually I'm just open a shader toy and scroll through it, find something that I like, and try to reproduce it in touch or something like that.
So it's playtime.
Yeah, for example, yesterday I found on Reddit interesting effect where the sine wave forms in terms of image, and then I think, how could I do it in GLSL?
All right.
2 hours later.
Before we get to your tutorials, because that is an important part of this little show, I want to give you guys a little perspective on your page. You said you didn't have a page on a personal portfolio.
Yeah, I'm too lazy to make it.
Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen. So this is your Instagram, right? Which is better than a portfolio sometimes, better than a web page.
Yeah, I think nowadays it's enough to have Instagram or maybe some other social networks.
These are wonderful and really, really smart works. Can you tell me something about them? The process of creating your works, themes you are approaching when you do them.
It's just from curiosity mostly, and from other artists. I like to go to Shade Editor or to DeviantArt or somewhere else to find some look I like and trying to do something about it.
And what do you search for when you go to Shader Toy, for example?
Just something that I like. Usually, quite often, I'm just to browse the new shaders and go like 10 pages of shaders or 20 pages until my eye catch something.
And you port them to Touch Designer? Or you spend
sometimes I port it in Touch Designer, especially like when I started to do GLSL, because for me it was a way of learning it, because I'm not really like to learn from basics, because it's boring to do some ramps or noises. I like to start from something difficult. So I ported Shader Toy and then think, what could I do about it so it wouldn't be just a still shader, but something new comes from it. But later, sometimes right now, I'm just writing from scratch GLSL.
So you say
this sine wave? Yeah.
This can be learned by approaching difficult projects, because I have a hard time with ramps and all that beginner stuff.
It could be. It's probably not the best way. I'm sure it's not the best way of doing it, but if you if your mind is somewhat similar to mine, maybe it would be maybe not an easier way, but at least it's more interesting way than just reading the book of shaders or like that.
Do you have a background in computer science or math studies or something like that?
No, at all. But in my teenage years, I like to solve mathematical puzzles and logical puzzles. So I'm not good at math, but I think I'm quite good in finding the algorithms of doing. Because algorithm is like puzzles. You think like, okay, how could you create this effect? And you come up with algorithm. And then there is a boring work of converting this algorithm into code.
Yes, I found that the biggest step in learning to code and learning GLSL, jumping from visual-oriented minds to binary thinking.
And realize. In that exactly point, it's where shader toy comes to help you, or sometimes you could convert shaders from Unity, because there is also a lot of examples in Unity community.
Let's talk about your tutorials, because this is a huge part of your contribution. And I guess this is why Touch Designer people know you. And did you start this?
Recently,
when did you start it? Yeah, recently, right?
10 months ago. Could you scroll a little bit down?
Yeah, sure.
So here is the first, no. A little bit up.
Okay.
And a little bit up. Oh, here's the first one. A tutorial GLSL vertex displacement. 10 months ago.
10 months ago. But you did something, because I saw that AI thing. The neural networks, right? That was shared a long time ago, because I've seen it a year ago or something like that.
Yeah, that was a time in 2016 or 17 where the new generation of neural networks come up, and Google Tip Dream and Style Transfer and everything. And in that time, I was learning the Python, and I thought, oh, it's a good idea to learn a Python by converting some style transfer algorithm to Touch Designer.
And how did you decide to do? What's your relationship with AI right now?
Right now, I'm waiting. I'm waiting till would be more algorithm that works real time in HD, because I've seen a lot of interesting projects right now, but mostly it's 256 by 256, or it's not real time, and that's I'm not interested.
Yeah, it takes a lot of computing, right? You're waiting for the performances, for the computer performances,
right? Algorithms, or for something, because there is a lot of progress, and so I hope soon we will see.
Where did that come from? The algorithm which you ported to Touch Designer?
I found it on GitHub. I don't know. In neural networks, there is a lot of state-of-art models, and everyone just using it, and sometimes just a little bit adjusted to themselves.
And do you approach this by from an artistical point or from a marketing perspective?
From artistical.
Artistical, okay.
Yeah. I like that style transfer stuff. And
about your tutorials.
Yeah.
How do you approach these tutorials? How did you find your niche?
Well, the first one was about that vertex displacement. Maybe you remember that time, 1 year ago. In Touch, there was an update where you could displace the vertices. Like you could have a top and have a height map.
Yeah.
For displacement. And then I thought, okay, how could I do it not only on high, but in different directions? And I pressed that button, output shader, and try to understand what's going on. And it actually was not that hard, and then I decided, okay, I need to do tutorial about that.
Okay. At what point do you decide that you need to do a tutorial in your research?
I don't know. For me, it's some kind of natural way of thinking, because I worked in university a while ago, so all that stuff about teaching, it's okay.
Okay, so you have a teaching experience. That's good. That helps when you do tutorials. I wanted to do some small tutorials about the basics or stuff like that, and I was lacking that teaching experience. So I did this to overcome my fear of talking to people, and now I think I'm ready to do a tutorial also. You've said there is a difference between you as a creator and you as a tutorial maker. Can you talk about this a little bit?
Yeah, I already forgot what I said about this. But yeah, there is a difference, because at least it's a difference in my mind attitude and how I feel about it. And because when I'm doing some art pieces for Instagram, I like to jump from one thing to another thing. I don't have any constant style or constant exploration.
Yes.
Usually I just jump. And when I'm doing tutorial, I need to do more systematical work and organize it somehow to people to approach step by step.
How did you arrive at this process? I mean, it's also natural, or did you have some discipline exercises for it? It's hard for me. It's hard for me to not think of what I'm working on when I'm playing in Touch Designer.
But there is a lot of possibilities in Touch, and you always need to have some boundaries, because you couldn't do everything in one setup. And when I'm doing when I'm thinking about doing some tutorial, I think, okay, right now I would play in Touch Designer, but I would play with I don't know, vertex shaders, or play with something else.
Okay.
So I'm still playing, but in some particular direction.
Okay. So did you have a step-by-step process? I mean, did you begin from simpler stuff and working up towards complicated stuff?
Usually it's opposite. Usually I did something that I like, complex stuff, and then I thought, okay, maybe I should make a tutorial about this. So if I make tutorials, then I need to go to basics and find some basics examples.
Yeah, this is fun. I have to try your method. I have to try to deep dive in something I don't know about, and what maybe you do know about, because you're a curious guy, as we said, we established before. And you also told me that exploration plays a big role. What is exploration to you? How do you define it? Yeah.
I wrote this letter to you 2 days ago, and I'm already not remembering what did I mean by that. Exploration.
This is going towards your shared resources, so we can steer the discussion in that way if it helps. So the exploration might mean the things that inspire you.
Yeah.
And you also told me that you have a tool-based approach rather than a visual aesthetics approach. So
that's
the tutorials, right?
Yeah, I mean, there is not only in Touch, but everywhere in Photoshop or in After Effects, there is two types of tutorials. Some tutorials do show in the beginning some very nice result and go step by step by doing that. For example, maybe it would be simpler to explain in Photoshop. They show some photo manipulation and show step by step. And by showing it, they also teach about levels, about mask, about everything. And I more prefer the different approach when they say, okay, this is level curves. Let's talk 1 hour about level curves. Not related to any project, just all about level curves. And then all about masks. And I prefer that one. It's just a personal preference. I don't say that it's better.
I like that too, because you go deep into one tool and play around it and see the endless possibilities. You don't just skip over it and just use it because it's a hammer. I mean, yeah, this is a very good approach, and I like it. I like when tutorials start with "this is a note." We're gonna talk about it and play with it. This is great. I think if you do this kind of stuff more, it will be greatly appreciated, at least by me. I like that. I like to go deep inside one notion. So if you want, you can share the screen and we can talk about those wonderful, inspiring websites you've sent me.
Maybe you can go by this. Yeah, because I don't have it open.
Okay, so I'll share the screen. And for all the users, this is Stas Pateron. And are there more resources here?
There is mostly more examples. Usually I do a tutorial and I have some extra examples for the Patreon supporters.
Okay, so...
And sometimes when I wrote some text about it, I'm using it as a blog as well. Usually I'm not writing a lot of text because when I'm writing English, it's like 3 times slower than Russian. I'm too lazy to do it.
All right, so guys, visit this Patreon site. Cool. So inspiration time, coding adventure.
Yeah, this is super great.
Okay, you talk about this because I've watched 3 or 4 of these videos. And I've almost got depressed myself for not understanding anything. They are fascinating to watch, but this is rocket science to me.
Yeah, I mostly watch this as just how smart people could be. And,
okay.
But sometimes, for example, the recent one he has there's n-body problem with planets. And I thought, okay, the planets, the gravity could be very interesting. So probably in some weeks I will start to work with gravity as well because it's wonderful. And it's also, I like the style. I like the style because it's not a tutorial, but it's not I don't know how to call it. It's a coding adventure.
I think it's
really recommend it.
Okay, so you're watching this, and do you want to apply methods here or ways of thinking or stuff like that?
Well, usually I'm too dumb to do this, but yeah, I would like to.
Okay, since the
but mostly it's just inspiration because I've seen some person coding a lot and doing some wonderful project. Could you play, for example, a solar system?
Because solar system.
Yeah,
the first one.
No. Yeah,
okay, I don't know if it has sound. So without sound, without sound,
it's okay without sound.
Okay.
For example, this that moment where.
Okay, I'm gonna go to the dancing planets. I actually saw this with the orbits and gravity changes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this was the point.
I think that's very beautiful. And I want to implement this in Touch Designer. And this is just the physics. This is physics of gravity. You have 2 bodies with masses and you have laws of gravity. So probably it would be possible to, well, for sure it would be possible to implement in Touch. I'm not sure that I'm good enough and smart enough to do this, but I hope to experiment with this because I really like how it looks. And just 3 balls and feedback.
And feedback, right? So this was these balls. I mean, planets in this case were governed by their gravitational force, pulling force towards each other, and he added a 3rd one, right? And everything changed with. I think this is doable in Touch Designer.
In these days, I prefer to use GLSL.
GLSL. Okay.
It would be simpler.
Cool. This is great stuff to watch.
Yeah.
And another inspirational coding adventure, I guess, was this Luna Sorcery on Twitch. Can you tell us about this? What is this?
Okay, let me start from the 80s or maybe 90s, where the demo stage was on its glory. A demo stage is when the computer geeks doing some graphic stuff. And right now, demo stage still exists, but it's mostly works with OpenGL. And there is a special, I don't know how is it called, special activity is a live coding. For example, they have 1 hour and they trying to do something in 1 hour, a lot of code. And it's interesting to watch how it's evolved. In 1 hour, they have from nothing to some super amazing visuals. And they also have a competition where they have, for example, half an hour to code. And it's absolutely...
And does this still happen?
Absolutely depressing to watch because people think so fast and they implement the ideas so fast.
Right. Well, that's what got me a little bit down watching this stuff. I've said, man, I will never get to that level. Harder as I try. But you shouldn't in Touch Designer, right? See, I mean, what's the comfortable level for you in Touch Designer approaching GLSL?
I think right now it's better if I share the screen because it would be easier to... where is my... Sorry, it's my first time in Zoom. Is it now... Could you see my screen now?
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay, for example, this stuff. For me, the comfortable level is I'm trying to find a good balance between coding in GLSL and coding in Touch. And I found, for example, there is something like geometry, and for me, it's simpler to do it in code. But when it comes to a color, for example, I could write all colors here in GLSL itself, but it's much simpler to just put a constant top and change color here because it's much simpler than writing the numbers. And so I just put a touch element and pass the information to GLSL. And sometimes it's the same for camera. Sometimes it's simpler to have a camera comes from touch with some camera comp, but sometimes it's simpler to have, like here, I have a static camera. I don't need camera to move, so it's simpler to do it in GLSL.
So you find quite a normal balance between GLSL coding and what Touch Designer has to offer, right?
Yeah, right. Or for example, if I would like to make this audio reactive, for sure I would use a touch. Because I've seen in Shaded they also do audio reactive, but it's much, much, much simpler in Touch to have this audio analyzer or something else and just pass the final values here in Shader.
I think that's a great approach because guys of derivative want to make it easier for people to transition from coding and third-party APIs or stuff like that. So they want to make nodes for everything. And this new approach by visualizing tops as point clouds and using colors as vectors, this is a new... I think this wants to simplify this process. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Especially for vertex shaders, maybe even more than for pixel shaders.
So did it work out for you as well?
Yeah, it worked for me as well. And but sometimes it would be just easier to have 2 lines of code than to have 20 nodes.
Yeah,
it depends. It depends what's the project about.
Okay, share screen. So this is the Google Arts, right?
right?
Okay. Do you use this for inspiration? Do you use this to learn about art history?
Mostly for inspiration and for watching. For example, I sent you a link where you could zoom into some pictures and you could see, for example, the Starry Night of Van Gogh or Mona Lisa very, very, very closely.
Like this, right?
And maybe even closer. Yeah, and for sure you couldn't do this in Louvre. You couldn't.
Now this is a very small painting. I don't know how that would be possible, but it's cool that you can do this. I didn't know you can zoom in. I knew about Google sharing some, most of the greatest
and
works, but
sometimes it's even possible to see the third dimension of artwork, how this oil thickness come to play. Because usually when you see some reduction on a flat screen, you don't see the third dimension. But with a very close up, you could see.
Yeah. These are the close-ups. Yeah, right. This was the page. Okay, let's look at Frida's details together. Right. And there's a little bit of history here to also learn. Yeah.
Yeah, and they also have a lot of collaboration with neural artists, let's call it this way, where they use AI and machine learning to somehow extract new information from paintings. For example, that T-SNE Map or other projects.
This is done, right?
This is a landscape of painting. The AI learns, I believe it could be very slow. I don't know. I believe the machine have information about mostly about the colors, but also about the year the art piece was created, maybe country, maybe something else. And it tries to arrange all the arts in some landscape. So if you close up to some areas, you could see somewhere, for example, the valley of portraits or the vases, or sometimes just the white paintings.
And these are joined by similarities in maybe color composition or I don't know.
But because it's AI, they also have a little bit of image recognition. So sometimes the AI understand that, okay, on this thousands of pictures we have flowers. So let's somehow also include it in the formula. So here we have orange flowers. Here we have minimalistic landscapes, and probably somewhere close near minimalistic landscape, we would have something like, what is this? This is graphics probably.
How hard would it be to do this in Touch Designer? I mean, if these pictures are a count of particles, right? I mean, this could go only on GLSL, I bet.
I think the hardest would be to collect all the data and to analyze all the data.
Okay.
Because they have, I don't know how much they have, like maybe 1 million of art stuff, and they also need to process this in some neural network to extract the data from it. For example, here we have a jewelry.
Yeah.
And you probably need to have a lot of computational time to analyze all the images. Yeah, probably you need to start from this T-SNE. It's a general name for algorithm of doing this. And there is an open database, for example, of written letters with different styles. And probably it would be much simpler to start. And if you could do a T-SNE map for letters, then then
All
you
right.
go to this.
And what about this style transfer project you did and shared with Stas Designer? Has it been welcomed by the users? What's your feedback?
Yeah, this was very welcomed, and there is a lot of questions about it. But now it's totally outdated. I do not recommend to use it anymore.
I was going to ask you how does it work, but I mean it's still a valid question, right? I mean the principle should be the same, I guess.
The principle should be the same. The problem mostly is to set up the things, because you need a certain version of TensorFlow that use the same version of Python that uses currently touch, and you need to find the version of CUDA that's the same and all the libraries, and that's the hardest part.
Okay, so it's just an updated problem here.
It's not an update. You need to find, because the newest TensorFlow have a more new version of Python. So you need to find,
If you want to update it or change it today, would it work?
There is two types of style transfer. This one is very slow. One HD image could be like 5 or 10 minutes to process, but the results are very nice. And another one, there is called fast style transfer, and I have probably on my YouTube somewhere the example. It's much less, it has much less details. Yeah, this one. Oops. For example, here I have mostly real-time style transfer, but the amount of details, it's much less than in that slower style transfer. If you could, here. Could you see my screen? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, for example, here in Van Gogh painting, you couldn't see this swirls. There is no swirls. There's just blue color and some, not so good. Or you still could recognize that, oh, this is from Monk, this is from Kandinsky, this is Starry Night, and I'm not even sure what this 3 is.
And I mean, this works, right? Here I cannot see it in real time, but is it 30 frames or per second or something like that on your side?
Yeah, it would be something like 30, maybe 40 frames per second for, I don't know, like, I'm not sure about HD. I need to check.
Yeah. And this is accessible? I mean, did you share this? This is quite amazing.
That's mostly a TensorFlow library, and I use Touch only for passing the frames. I think I used the screen grab or something like that. So there is not much of a touch involved. You could see here the whole net. So this is a whole network.
Yeah.
So it's just this. I grabbed this screen in my command line in TensorFlow, and I used probably it's it's a screen grab, and on the other hand, it would be, I don't know, virtual camera or something like that. So it's not about touch. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This is great work. And what are your future prospects? You said you're waiting for AI, but surely there must be something that keeps you.
Yeah, I'm waiting for UI, and but probably you've seen this on Touch Designer. You've seen my screen, right? I'm not sure. Yeah. Vasily Betin, he's from Shanghai, and recently he posts probably it's an touch designer group. This one. This is in touch, and
yeah,
it's also neural networks. It's very cool.
this was amazing. This is very cool.
It's also the low resolution, and it's not real time, but we're approaching it. So,
how do you do this? I mean, do you use tracking points or something like that? How is this done?
Yeah, there's face landmarks, and there is already pre-trained models, so you mostly need to use the right models in right order to do this. Yeah.
This was very fun. I mean, this has huge potential for artistic and commercial projects, I think.
Yeah, and I've posted you a link for 2-minute papers. Maybe some people not familiar with it. There is a YouTube channel about the current papers about computer graphics, and it's mostly about the physical-based simulation and the AI stuff. So, and hopefully you could watch some. For example, this AI made a conversion from day to night or between the seasons from one picture itself. So it's one original picture and everything else done by AI. And probably someday we could do this in touch, maybe 5 years ago. I don't know. Here's a real-time simulation.
So what is this guy? I mean, this is Karol Fehér, right?
Yeah, and
what does he do?
Why?
What is his purpose of doing this? He's a scientist, okay? And he publishes his, conclusions in these tiny videos.
In tiny videos, yeah, he explained to a general public what's happening right now in the graphics, how to call it? Science graphic community. I don't know how they call themselves. Yeah. I would like to have this octopus in touch.
And it's
in real time. Yeah, and it's in real time. And sometimes there is sometimes for the some models there is a open code, but usually it's super hard to implement. I'm just watching it because it's fun to see what's
amazing stuff,
right now.
Stas.
Yeah.
Great. This should keep us occupied for a long time. And it's good to have a perspective of where things are going.
Yeah, actually, I've seen something similar to this in touch recently.
Folding meshes or cloth physics?
Cloth simulation.
Yeah.
Someone already did it without sharing the top file, but still.
Yeah, there was a way with using noise and a mesh grids.
Yeah, and spring sops.
Spring, yeah. The bad thing about springs is that you have to hold them in pinpoints, or else they're gonna go away from your screen, and it's hard to control. I mean, to have the same.
Yeah. I haven't experimented with springs yet.
I've saw some flags done this way in Touch Designer.
Yeah, but flags also could be done quite easily with vertex displacement.
Tell me about this, and afterwards about that Murmurs Birds project. That was very beautiful to watch. The latest noisy birds.
Yeah, let me. Okay, that's not a flag. That's not a flag, but yeah, probably if real physics it would be much better, but.
And
it's done with displacement.
Displacement,
yeah, it's
just
vertex displacement. And it's just a circular ramp and nothing else.
On a sub? Was that on a sub?
Yeah, on a grid.
On a grid.
Yeah, on a grid. Birds.
Yeah, this latest project. This was poetic to watch.
Yeah, it's mostly probably from background, because that was just some particles simulation before I decided to add a background, and then it becomes like birds murmurations. And it comes from the curl noise tutorial from Bruno Imbrizi.
Okay, we'll check him out too. Is this loopable? Can you make a loop out of this?
Yes, it would be a little bit harder because I have a lot of noise happening everywhere, in particles, in background. So I need to loop the noise, all the noises. But yeah, it's doable.
All right. This is great work. I think this portrays my description at the beginning when I said the science meets art in a very mathematical, beautiful way. Okay, I closed your screen because I wanted to share this last resource. This one.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna play it. I just wanted to have the name highlighted. So, are you into spoken poetry or stuff like this? I mean, isn't this spoken poetry, live poetry, readings?
Yeah, reading letters. And I think this one is a very nice message for all artists. For dark period especially. It's
right?
About struggles in your artistic life.
Great. So do you have a message for all the people that are watching? An encouragement one, maybe?
Have fun, make art, think positive, relax. I don't know. Something like that.
Thank you. Thank you for this meeting.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Cool. See you later and have a great day ahead of you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Very nice project.
Thanks so much. Guys, this has been great. You have been wonderful and your feedback was very positive on the group. Thank you for that. And I want to thank my guests for their shared experience and for their time. I'm sure you've noticed there is a website called Contraption.pro, and there is also a YouTube channel, and there is also a Patreon page. So if you want to contribute to this, feel free to do so. Thank you and have a great day.